Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be covering round 1 of the Julius Baer Generation Cup, an online tournament, and I'm going to give you just what you came here to see, only the games of Hans Niemann and only the blunders therein. So there was 4 games, all 4 games were decisive, each game contained one major blunder, so I'm going to go over those now. So in this first game I'm going to look at, Gelfand has the white pieces, Niemann has black, and on move 20, Gelfand goes wrong with the move bishop to g5. What he really needed to play here was bishop takes e5, and then there's this big trade down of the minor pieces like this. Each side goes into Pac-Man mode, but at the end of the day, it turns out to be roughly equal after this line here. But for some reason, Gelfand didn't like that, so he went for bishop g5. The problem is here, there's rook c2. And where's the white queen going? Not a lot of squares, you pretty much just got to go to b1, but then there's a nasty discovered attack. The rook takes here, the bishop's hitting the queen, and there's also the threat of winning a piece on f3, so I believe at that point Gelfand resigned. Yeah, because if queen c1, just bishop takes f3, black's winning a piece. Okay, next game. Niemann has white in this one, and he's up against Yu with the black pieces. Now in this position, Yu went wrong with the move bishop to b6. Okay, so threatening to win the white bishop, but this isn't anything to worry about. Now before this, it's worth noting that king takes d5 wouldn't work because rook d7 check, right? So the bishop is just getting out of danger. But this is incorrect. What should have been played was rook to b4, looking to win this pawn potentially, and also watching over this h4 square, because after rook takes h7, g5 is the move. Now, how are you going to advance this pawn? Because the bishop's on it, the rook's on it. So white has the 2 extra pawns, actually 3 extra pawns, but it's going to be hard to win, and white may still be winning, but this was black's best chance. You know, you could go here hitting this bishop, the bishop will just stay here, and this pawn, you're going to end up losing that pawn. So that was what you needed to do, rook to b4. Instead, bishop to b6, and now bishop c4, because it was a threat, king takes bishop was again a threat, and this bishop is staying on this diagonal. And it can come in here and try to win these pawns. See, this is what happens. Rook to c2 gets played, attacking the bishop. And then Niemann throws in this rook check, which is very strong, because now the king has to move toward this side of the board to defend the bishop. And now we go bishop to g8, and we're just going to win a pawn over here, and the material advantage is going to be too much. Bishop f7 played, and then after this, white just has too many pawns and is going to win. You know, you can't even attack this pawn anymore with the rook because this bishop's covering all the squares. So that was how Niemann won against Yu. Let's go on to the next game. In this game, Rattuslaw had white and Niemann was playing black. Niemann messed up big time with this move f4. I think he missed this tactic, but then he spotted it, because after e takes f4, at this point he played knight takes d2, because I think he may have spotted this tactic. The point is, if you just recapture the pawn like this might be good for black, if not for this tactic, knight takes e4. And after the pawn takes, we go queen takes e4, dual threats of taking on e7, and also queen to e6 check, winning this bishop over here. So that's why it's not working. And that's why Niemann at this point probably decided to take out that knight on d2, just eliminate that tactic. But after bishop takes d2, if you take here, the bishop just takes. So Niemann didn't do that. He played bishop f6, but now white is 2 pawns up and ends up winning. And now for our final game, Niemann versus Keemer, or Keemer. Keemer made a mistake with this b6 move. Looks pretty tricky. You can't take the pawn or else you're losing the knight, right? But Niemann found the correct move. The correct move was knight to c4. And now there's 2 threats. The most obvious being winning this pawn here, but not so obvious is that after b takes c5, which is what is played in the game, knight to f4 is a winning move. The rook is attacked 2 times, so you take the knight, you're losing your rook. That's not good. The problem is, once you move the rook, now there's a check and a fork. After this knight moved off d6, that made that tactic possible, because if you would have tried the same thing with the knight on d6, it doesn't work. If you tried knight f4 here, well, just rook takes d6, and that deals with the problem. And if pawn takes, we get 2 pieces for the rook, 2 minor pieces. So that's how moving that knight off of d6 made this threat come alive of going knight to f4. dual threats to this rook and the fork here. So very nice tactic spotted by Niemann. And that concludes today's coverage. Feel free to like and subscribe. There's going to be more of these quick little recaps in the future.